it is incumbent upon you to make sure you get an attorney whenever you walk into any courthouse. Um, my friend has every edition of Air Jordans. He's got shelves on the wall in his room, his bedroom, and he's got them all lined up, kind of like sneaker pimps or sneaker kings. You may have seen that on YouTube. And he told me that he can't afford to get a lawyer. Gentlemen, listen. If you value the impact you have in your children's lives as a father, you got to be prepared. Now, there are very few, and I don't want to call it an anomaly. I'll just say few and far between where you have couples who aren't together but are adult enough and mature enough to co-parent their children. I know a handful of those folks. I also know a handful of single men who have full custody of their kids, and they do a great job, and they're great fathers, very engaged and very active in their children's lives. If you're in a situation right now where you think everything is humming along, all it takes is one variable, just one, to knock that equilibrium right off, to knock that train right off the tracks. And then you find yourself in a situation where you got to go to court. If everything is working well, this is tough because I would say still go to court and get a parenting plan just to be able to foresee any unforeseen issues in the future, just to make sure you're covering your butt, because your child's mother or your child's father can get into another relationship, like in this scenario, and all of a sudden that person is wielding a lot of influence on the other individual, and then all of a sudden that happy-go-lucky, hey, we're good, we don't need child support, we don't need a parenting plan, we're working like two adults, two parents to raise our kids, can get derailed fast. Don't rest on your laurels. If it's working well right now, it might not always work well. It's almost like a prenup in a way. But you don't want to walk into a courthouse without an attorney advocating for you. Period. And even if it's just for a parenting plan, like I told my friend, sell some of those sneakers, get your retainer up, and go to court and handle your business. Fight for your kids. Because if you don't fight for them, you don't want to end up like 50 Cent in his situation. I'm not saying 50 Cent didn't fight for his son, but what I'm saying is you want to, at minimum, get a parental plan logged in through the courts and follow that plan. Now, if you guys deviate from the plan, like, you get to spend more time with your kids, good. But at a minimum, you have a plan, and if that plan's not adhered to, then you can take that other person back to court, and they'll be in contempt of court. So that's all I'm saying is get you behind the court, get a lawyer, and get your parental plan in place. So, black folks, we are being blamed right now because we are not showing up for the Democratic Party. I think black people as a community, we probably should be apolitical. And apolitical is basically when you don't have any allegiance to any party. You're bipartisan. You're looking at the candidate and what they are doing or what they're not doing. You're looking at their agenda. Is their agenda congruent with your needs? Not just party needs, party line needs, but your needs. Warnock is, at this point, getting beat by somebody who is not very bright at all. Not very smart, not very intelligent. it was a minstrel show, the debate. Stacey Abrams, we played a clip on her talking about she really can't do anything for black folks because mathematically you can't win an election with black folks. Well, guess what? Black people, by and large, are the foundation to the Democratic Party. And then how can you say that mathematically you can't win with black people when you look at the other groups, Asians, for example, 5 to 6% of the population, the alphabet, around 4%, trans, less than 1%, Native Americans, 2%, Jewish, 2.4%. And black Americans are hovering around, 13, 14, 15% of the population. So how can you not mathematically win with the black vote? We need to start holding politicians accountable. And I think the fact that we're not running to the polls is quietly, but also loudly indicating that we're not going to fall for the okie doke. We've been falling for it since the 60s. We need to have an agenda that specifically speaks to the black community, not people of color, because that does not mean us, not minorities, because that does not mean us, the black community, period. Everybody else's agendas, you go to their websites and they specifically indicate we're doing this for Native Americans, we're doing this for Asian and Pacific Islanders, we're doing this for Hispanics. It doesn't say anything about black and brown, people of color, or minorities. There are no coalitions, people. A coalition dictates reciprocity. We don't have any reciprocity coming our way. We do all the work, everybody else gets all the credit. So a good example of that is you look at affirmative action, right? Affirmative action was designed to narrow the schism between opportunity in corporate America, by and large, between black folks and white folks, period. So black people were, let's vote for let's go. And affirmative action did not do what it was intended to do because the language was a broad language like people of color, minorities, undeserved communities, which means everybody. It means everybody. And then at the end of the day, the greatest beneficiary of affirmative action were white females. So when you say people of color and you say black and brown, you're diluting what you want to do in terms of the agenda for the black community. We don't owe anybody anything. We don't owe any group. Let them hold their own nuts. We don't owe anybody anything, but we owe us. We owe us. And then when there are resources, no one's sharing any resources. The Asian community got they in New York alone, they've got millions of dollars to help boost Asian businesses. Just in New York alone. Federally, they got billions of dollars. The Alphabet Group got laws and money. And they're even written into the Americans with Disability Act, ADA, as a protected class. Hispanics got money. They got bills, laws. The Alphabet Group got money. They got executive orders, and they're a protected class. There's even an anti-Semitism hate bill out there. But when you look at the FBI statistics, the people who are overwhelmingly landslide by thousands are Black Americans that deal with racism, anti-Black racism. Let me correct. Language is important, vocabulary is important, and you need to be specific. So anti-Black racism. None of those people go in and talk about brown and black. None of those people say Asian and black, none of these people say alphabet and black. They're fighting for their groups, as they should. I don't begrudge them at all. That's what they should be doing. But we're the only ones that are foolish enough to, when we get resources, try to include everybody else. Listen, that's got to stop. Oregon, during COVID, the state got some federal funds. They got about $62 million in federal funds. They got 14 billion, okay, of federal funds to help the state out. $62 million was allocated from the 14 billion that was budgeted to the state, which is roughly about 4.5%. 4.5% was allocated to help the black community in Oregon, which, when that state was incorporated, they wrote in their constitution that they don't want any black people in the state, any free black people. Oregon wrote that. But I digress. 4.5% of their budget, COVID budget for the state, which equals $62 million, was allocated for the black community and the black business community. Guess who had a problem with that? The Asian community in Oregon and also the Hispanic community in Oregon. And here's the hypocrisy. They had funds earmarked to those respective communities. The Asians had funds earmarked for their community, and the Latinos had funds earmarked for their community. But the second that there was some earmarks for blacks, everybody had a problem. The second that there's funds or resources allocated for the black community, everybody's got a problem. They don't mind it when it's allocated to their community. That's fine. That's how it should be. But the second that we have it allocated to our community, it's an issue. We need to control our own economics. You go around those communities I just spoke about, they don't share any of their resources with the black community. None. And they don't have to. We have to stop feeling bad for everybody else and devoting to poverty or struggle. No. All these people are in this country because of what black folks did. You talk about the DREAM Acts, the citizenship. That's the 14th Amendment. That was ratified in 1868. Who was fighting for that? There weren't really many Latinos in the country at that time. There weren't a lot of Asians in the country at that time. There weren't a lot of, any other nationality or ethnicity in the country at that time. It was black people that were fighting. All these civil rights acts, it was black people. But everybody's benefiting from it. You need to read your history and stay up on it because everything's being whitewashed. Everything's being whitewashed. And they're trying to erase our history and they're trying to erase our culture. So I was having a conversation about somebody with a friend, and they were talking about homelessness. So I did some research about homelessness. Back in September 28th, 2021, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD for short, had a study. They were posed with a question: how much would it cost to end homelessness in the United States? And they posited 20 billion. Some other folks have different theorems going in excess of 30 billion, 40 billion to end homelessness in this country. So when you look at homelessness, 13% of the homeless are vets, which that's a travesty. These are people who are fighting for their country, laying their lives on the line for political hubris in most cases. Um, and you got 13% of the homeless vets. There should be 0%. Those people should be, especially if they come back with any mental illness or any physical ailment, physical injuries, they should be taken care of for the rest of their lives. Blacks have the highest rates of homelessness, over 40%, and the Latinos are around 22%. So keep that figure in mind. Let's double the 20 billion that HUD said would end homelessness in America. We've already have given out over $50 billion in aid to the Ukraine. What if that money was rediverted to attack homelessness in this country? It would have been eradicated. The Afghan war, we put over $1 trillion to that. You've got a lot of cities in this country that could have used some sort of infrastructure boost. $1 trillion is a lot of money to go towards that. Why are we okay with giving money and diverting funds outside the United States to help people? We're not the moral authority of the world. Actually, nobody really is. But when you look at the history of the US and what the FBI has done and the CIA has done and the politicians have done, it doesn't look good at all. $50 billion plus. And that money could have been used to eradicate homelessness. So what's interesting when you look at that too, you look at the prison industrial complex. And let's take California, the richest state in the country, and I believe top 5 highest GDP worldwide. So if California was its own nation, they would be in the top 5 in gross domestic product. It takes about $115,000 a year to house criminals or an inmate, because it's debatable whether they're criminals or not. $115,000 it takes a year. Some states are lower, but $115,000. What if you took that money and you provided student loans or student funding per student? I don't know how many inmates are in California. I could probably just look that up. But juxtapose that with funding college education within the state. Now, how likely is that? Very unlikely, because the prison industrial complex is privately owned and it's a for-profit entity that they're not going to want to not make money. So I had a friend debate Biden with me. He said, yeah, he's pardoning inmates or people who are incarcerated over only weed. Number one, the stats say that there's basically nobody who's been thrown in federal prison for just weed. That may be one charge of several charges, but no one's thrown in federal prison for weed. For those coconuts in the back, in the coconut, you're brown on the outside, white on the inside. Earlier I said language matters, vocabulary matters. You have to read through the fine print. You got to read between the lines, because Biden also had set some police reform, but the police reform only impacted federal agencies. When's the last time you heard somebody from Homeland Security shooting unarmed Black people in the back? or the FBI or the ATF or the IRS. If he really wanted to do something, that would have focused on state and local law enforcement, not federal. But when you go out there and you say, this is what I'm doing, and it doesn't really impact, and the intent is disingenuous, you're not really doing anything. And when you've got the coconuts out there beating their chest saying, this is what he's doing, this is what he's doing, he's not really doing anything once you really look into it. Not doing anything. And like I said a month ago, we need to get rid of the Democratic Party. Black people do not show up for these people, period. Now, I want to go back to the administration. So when you talk about resources and resources being diverted to the wealthy or the cronies, when you look at the administration of this city, and we had a conversation last week about opera funds coming in that are intended to help the Black community, the Hispanic community, and allocated to organizations that are really doing groundwork in the community. And when you look at the organizations that receive the most amount of money, those are organizations that aren't really doing anything in the community. So these funds are acting as an annuity, and they don't really have to do anything for it. They automatically get it. If you ask them to show you a plan, they can write a plan out. Okay, where's this plan been executed at? They can't give you that. They can't give you boots on the ground. They can't give you a game plan in terms of what has been done. There's nothing measurable. There's nothing impactful. But for some reason, they get the lion's share of the money with no oversight. Now, the organizations like the Family Center, Boys and Girls Club Family Center, and other ones that are actually doing things within the community that can give you data, impact, and also illustrate boots on the ground and what those boots on the ground have been doing, get the least amount of money because it's controlled right here. It's controlled right here. And then you've got funds that are supposed to be going out to the community being diverted to the police. And we know the relationship that the Black community has with the Springfield Police Department. And this is the guy. It all rounds up to the top. And when you talk about the sphere of influence, housing, sheriffs, attorneys, GCs, why is it the same companies are involved in the construction projects within the city of Springfield? There's one organization, Echo Dev, that needs to be up here too, because they're intertwined with what's going on with the administration. Why aren't funds or projects being offered to, Black-owned organizations? Now, you've got WBEs, women business entities, and you've got MBEs, minority business entities, and how some of these people get around it. If I'm a general contractor and I want to get access to these funds, but I'm not an MBE, minority business owner, or a WBE, women business entity, or I think they got VBE, veteran business entities, and I'm not a veteran, and I'm not a woman, and I'm not a minority, guess what, honey? I'm going to create an LLC. You're going to be the new president of Honey General Contractors. So she fills out the paperwork, and it gets fast-tracked, and she's a WBE, and then she gets allocated those funds, which serve her husband. And that's one of the ways. There's a number of ways, but that's one of the ways you get around the criterion of qualifying for these funds. Another thing and I'm talking specifically about the opera funds, you create so much administrative malaise and confusion and requirements that it's almost impossible for you to qualify or meet all the requirements based on this paperwork. The state set some criteria, which, in my opinion, was a lot easier. But then the city came on and overlaid some additional criteria, which is much more onerous. So a lot of people don't qualify for it. And there's been tons of people who recently got letters of thanks but no thanks in terms of getting small business loans. And a lot of those people were Black and Latino. When you drive around Springfield and you see construction, look at the complexion of the workers. It's the same. Look at the side of the trucks and the vans. It's the same people. Cronyism? I think so. Where's the diversity, equity, inclusion officer? What is that individual doing to make sure there's parity in contracts and opportunities in the city of Springfield? Listen, if you want change, and we talked about this last week about cleaning house, looking past the Hatfields and the McCoys, looking past personalities, looking past family disputes that have been going on for decades and people don't even really know what they're disputing or mad about. Operating on code. If the Black community in Springfield operates on code, we can change this. Now, the mascots, they're out there. So when you invite the mayor to events or you allow him to show up or certain people on the city council show up, you're an enemy of progress. And you're not really down for your community. There are always those that do that. They're so overly integrated and they don't like the skin that they're in. They've got either Stockholm syndrome or they're enemies of the state. I got to remember where the FCC's is listening. They're enemies of the state. But there's more of us that are on code than there are mascots or gatekeepers. And those people know who they are. And I'm talking specifically to you. And you know who you are. And you can sit there and beat your chest and scream. The ones that are screaming the loudest, those are the ones you need to look out for. Take them out of the equation. There's enough Black folks in this community that can change this administration. There's more than enough. Simply by that vote, simply by that community's vote, our vote can change this. So you need to ask yourself, do you want to change or do you want to complain? We can complain to the cows come home. That's one thing about the show is we talk about the issues, but we spend more time talking about the solutions. We all know the issues. There's not a Black adult here in the community that can't, or even in this country or even around the world, that can't tell you what the issues are. We all know the issues. But are we going to be sitting at the barbershop or at the diner or the cafe or, within our little circles and just complaining all the time? Or are we going to make change? Because it's up to us. It's up to us. Nobody else. Everybody's getting their money. Everybody's getting their resources. There's no reciprocity. Let me repeat that again. There's no reciprocity. There are no coalitions. There are no allies. Don't count the people that are in your circle. because I'm talking about locally, regionally, nationally. There's no groundswell of ally support or coalitions. Stop saying black and brown. Stop saying people of color. We don't use minority anymore because people of color is minority 2.0. Stop saying those things. Say black, period. We can't undermine our movement. We can't undermine our objectives and our goals by including everybody else in. That's exactly what we do. And nobody's doing that. Nobody's including us. And you can go to their website and you can actually see the language of their mission statements, and you won't see underserved, underrepresented, misaligned, malaligned, minority, people of color. You're not going to see any of that language. You're going to see specific language and words that identify them as a group, whether it's a race or nationality. That's what you're going to see. We need to be on code. Period. And that's all I got to say for.
Well, let me just read this. City Councilor Justin Hurst, Tracy Whitfield, Zyda Gavon, they issued a press statement. I'm just going to read this for anyone who's still listening. City Councilors Justin Hurst, Tracy Whitfield, Zyda Gavon are calling on Mayor Dominic Sarno and the city's finance team to resolve the inequities that have resulted in the initial awards of over $76 million of American Rescue Plan Act funding. After closely reviewing the data during a recent finance subcommittee meeting, it became clear to councilors that there were significant racial, gender, and geographical gaps in the ARPA award amounts distributed. These gaps were most glaring in the small business category, even after the city has celebrated each round as being intentionally diverse. While the administration has done a commendable job when it comes to the number of minority-owned small businesses, it has awarded money to 82%. It has fallen woefully short in ensuring that these businesses receive their fair share of money being awarded. For example, while 73%, 48% Black, 25% Hispanic of small business applicants receive ARPA funding. While 73% of small business applicants receiving ARPA funding were Black and Hispanic, only 32% of the total amount of money allocated in the small business category was awarded to these same businesses. Let me repeat. It says 82% of the awardees were Black and Latino. And while 73% of small business applicants receiving were, well, that's kind of confusing, but anyways, it says, I guess, Blacks received 32% of the funding, 9% went to the Latino community. So they're saying that, it's been distribution of funds, as you were saying earlier. I just want to point this out because they just commented on that. The distribution has been completely inequitable. So they said 17% however, 17% of the white small business applicants receiving ARPA funding received 44% of the total funds allocated. Women-owned businesses face similar inequities as Black and Hispanic-owned businesses, as they only received 13% of the total funds in the small business category, but represented 34% of the applicants receiving funding. The data illustrates that white small businesses who applied for ARPA funding were awarded on average. You ready? White businesses that were awarded on average $382,727, while Black small businesses were awarded on average $76,000. Latino small businesses were awarded on average $56,000. Can you imagine that gap? $382,000 in contrast to $76,000 for Blacks and $56,000 for Latino.
Listen, that's your mayor, and that's what he thinks of you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a small business or even a micro business, but since the language in that press release said small business, you need every single penny. Large businesses usually will have positive working capital if it's operated and run correctly. And positive working capital is when you take on the balance sheet, you take your total current assets and subtracted by your total current liabilities, what's left over is your working capital. And if that's in the negative, you have negative working capital. But if it's in the positive, you're in pretty good shape. So when we talk about the wealth gap, here's one of the reasons. And that's your mayor. And Daryl, you might have the demographics. You don't have to be pinpoint on it. In terms of population in Springfield, what percentage is Black? What percentage is Latino?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I can't answer that honestly. I don't have the data on that right now.
You know what? And I had the data, but it's at home.
Well, let me just add this other piece. Justin Hurst goes on to say that another issue at the subcommittee meeting that raised concerns amongst councilors was, out of all the small businesses and nonprofits who were awarded ARPA funds, 38 of them are located in the Metro Center neighborhood. In other words, they're downtown. To put it in this context, small businesses and nonprofits in the Metro Center neighborhoods were awarded funding at 5 times the rate of small businesses and nonprofits in the next highest awarded neighborhoods: Forest Park, Indian Orchard, Pine Point, and McKnight. 38 times the rate of small businesses and nonprofits in the lowest awarding neighborhoods: North End, 16 acres. In addition, the Metro Center neighborhood received over $12 million of the $28 million awarded to businesses and nonprofits, while the rest of the neighborhoods in the city had to share the remaining $16 million.
Listen, folks, when we talk about data,
this is what you're going to get.
When we talk about data, that's the data. The old expression that says the numbers don't lie, the numbers don't lie. Now, when you've got that man coming to your cookout or your awards or to your church or ribbon cutting for something, and this is what he's doing, so what does that say about you?
And you know what's crazy? The city council president, who is almost a mirror image of the mayor, Jesse Letterman, he's on the ARPA distribution. He's a part of that meeting as well. He's the city council president. He sits in those meetings with the mayor, Tommy Ash, and the rest of them, deciding who gets what. He's invited to the mayor doesn't get invited to every cookout. I'd probably say out of maybe 8 out of 10.
That's so
Jesse
high percentage.
Gets invited to 10 out of 10, and people go, yo, Jesse's a really good guy. He showed up to everything. But where is he on this issue? He's not a part of this. He's not a part of this press release, which means he obviously had no issues with the inequitable distribution of funds across the city. So I'm like, so as we're holding people accountable, it's like everybody has to be accountable. And people ask me, so what's your problem with Jesse? Absolutely nothing.
It's holding him accountable.
It's holding him accountable. Nobody should get a free pass. I don't care how nice you are or how nice you present. Nobody gets passes. And when your city council president is sitting right there with Dominic Sarno and they're making these horrible decisions, yo, man, it makes me scratch my head. And I'm like, dang.
And homeboy also sits on the...
get an invitation to the cookout, but he's at everything and he does nothing. Tracy, Whitfield, Justin Hurst, they always look like the bad guys. They always seem like they're complaining. But they're the only ones blowing the horn, ringing the alarms, and waving the flags, trying to get people's attention. It's crazy.
That's a great point. So when you're voting for these city councilors and you have Tracy Whitfield and Justin Hurst are the only ones blowing the horn, like you said, what are the other city councilors doing? And the president of city council is also on the board of the Boys and Girls Club Family Center, which based on the data that you just read, got pennies compared to what some of the other organizations
Cool
were.
Street Boys and Girls Club got $1 million more than the Family Center on Acorn Street. $1 million.
That place is almost empty all the time.
$1 million more than the Boys and Girls Club Family Center on Acorn Street. They got $500,000, and the mayor was heard saying in his office, "Well, Keyshawn needs to be happy I gave him that." Can you imagine?
Okay. All right, so let's break that apart. Keyshawn needs to be happy that he got that. You're not the arbiter of how the funds, like these funds are coming from the state to be distributed among the community. Like you're wielding some sort of a Harry Potter wand
Mm-hmm.
and say, well, this is what he's going to get. So based on that logic, how did
It's a
how did
mobster.
Carew get $1 million?
It's a mobster mentality.
Okay.
You kiss the ring, you get this. You don't kiss the ring, you align yourself, or you continue, healthy relationships that you have with people that the mayor don't like, and you get penalized. It's that mobster mentality. So I mean, it's absolutely insane. But it's also about the failure of the people, black, white, blue, brown, doesn't matter. The failure of the people to hold them accountable. People are so enamored when he comes through and they're posing for pictures. He wrote me a letter. Yeah, but he didn't fund the business right around the corner from you, did he?
Yeah. Or he didn't even fund your business, or he gave you pennies.
Right. And people are celebrating. One person got about $30,000. Like, I'm happy. I ain't gonna complain because at least I got that. It's like,
imagine if that person got 300-something thousand.
Absolutely nuts. It was the intent of the federal government who made it clear that these monies were designed for those communities and businesses who were most disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. How are you happy about $30,000 when they got $123 million? The vast majority of the awardees were black and brown. But when you look at the amount of money they got, man, it's less than 30% of the overall pennies. Funds. Who cares if you gave 5,000 people awards if you only gave them all $1 each? But then you took, the 10 white guys and you gave them all 2.4 million here, 6 million there, 8 million there. I mean, really? Let's do the math on that.
That's that mascot syndrome. So when you look at people, you just heard this, man. Like, you just heard this. We can't be that dumb. We can't be that dumb. You serious? Are you serious? What are you saying? You number one, first off, you got the courage to have your own business. Not a lot of people have that courage to be 1099s. There's a lot of W-2s, and hey, I'm a W-2. But you have the courage to start your own business. Don't you want your business to be successful? And if you didn't need the help, you wouldn't have filled out the form for the help. I mean, granted, companies like Disney and stuff like that got money, and I think they had to give it back because of the outrage. But you filled out the application process because you needed help.
But keep it 100. Most of these people assume that when black people apply for funds or try to get grants, or when these pots of money come through, although it's designated for them, that any and everybody who attempts to get these funds is just trying to hustle their way through it. These same politicians downtown, they have a difficult time seeing us as being legitimate business owners. I don't care what we do or how we do it. Unless we're cooning all up in their faces all day, you don't get the same respect. Will Chapman from Chapman's House of Pain, he had a martial arts facility in Indian Orchard. Awesome.
Great guy.
My daughter was scheduled to go there. Because of the pandemic, he was forced to shut down. He went to the city council meeting. No one was moved aside from Justin Hurst, Tracy Whitfield, Zaida Govan. The rest of them were just like, oh well. When you got a grown man damn near crying because his business is suffering and he's about to close the doors, we have a problem. Sylvia Randolph, hey, Sylvia, says you have to transform your whole community's economic development structure. Each section model what 16 acres is doing. What is the difference in the development plan? Well, you can't have a development plan when you have absolutely no resources.
Yeah.
And you don't have access to the resources and the tools. When you look at 16 acres, you look at the amount of funding it's put into 16 acres. 16 acres is also one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city. When you look at those who have economic development initiatives taking place, with the developers that are up there are people who have the resources. They have access. When you don't have that access, you can't say, well, we have a tight plan. Let me see your plan. What am I planning with?
Yeah.
So I think we have to they said, what is their tools and plan? Well, I'm not going to get into what their tools and plans are, but just tell me they have access. I'm going to say that enough. When you go back and you look at the way Justin, those guys broke it down, when you look at the amount of money allocated, when you look at the $35,000, $40,000 that small black businesses are getting in contrast to the 6.2 million, 2.4 million, 1.8 million, those types of
There's no scale there.
There's no scale.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
and now Sylvia says, what are the tools and the plans? She says, make it and do it. I hope I'm reading that right, Sylvia. But the reality is we still have businesses that are still afloat and they're doing it on their own. I know I run 2 businesses and I'm doing it on my own. So I look at
Dave
all the
Smith that was
Dave
here.
Smith doing it on his own. Lamont Clemens doing it on his own. There are a whole lot of folks we're still running businesses. But the reality is, here's the issue, though. It's not a matter of can we do it, because we've been doing it since the beginning of the time. When we arrived in this country, we've done it. Post-slavery, we've done it. That's not the issue. But when you have a government that sends $123 million into a city, don't ask me about my tools and what I'm doing, when I know that those dollars are sent here for me, specifically for people who look like me. And when those monies go elsewhere, then we have a problem. And when you point to me and question me as opposed to questioning them, that's a problem. That's like saying, yo, boss, why you try to lead a plantation? No, there's a problem and it has to be addressed. I dig what folks are saying. But again, it goes back to we have a hard time seeing ourselves as being credible and competent. I'm not trying to jump twice as high. I'm not trying to work twice as hard. That's that stuff my parents told me, that you got to run twice as fast, jump twice as high. Listen, if Tommy Ash ain't got to jump high, he's about the dumbest thing in City Hall. If he doesn't have to jump twice as high, why do I?
Yeah, it's like you're on a basketball court and you have 2 attempts to shoot a basket, but you got to shoot it from half court. Meanwhile, the Tommy Ashes have 100 attempts and they're shooting a layup. They're right underneath the basket.
Right.
I mean,
it's about access.
Yeah, and it's about access and equity.
And I think you broke it down with your chart when you talked about, listen, man, this is the hierarchy. The reality is we can change that. So when we talk about tools, it's more so, what is your strategic plan? How do you plan to take over these offices? How do you plan to create a paradigm shift so that we can get here and be the ones determining where those dollars are going to be, where those dollars are going to float? And I think that's how we need to look at it. I'm not here to subject any black business owner to unfair inquisition, while at the same time other people are receiving millions of dollars without question.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be like that. And we have to expect more. We just can't be happy. And someone's comes to mind, and I know who I'm thinking about. You're getting your little piddly 25, 30,000, and then you're just happy, while your competition is getting 6 figures, 7 figures. But because you got your little 30,000, you're willing to pose with this dude, and go talk to them. The black community does not need to be handled. And we don't need to be handled by gatekeepers.
Katrina Banks says, I get upset every time I hear about ARPA funds and that all this money is out here. I heard tonight that we are not filling out the applications correctly. What a slap in the face. We are not all filling out the application incorrectly. Katrina, you are Dr. Well, let me call you by your name. Yeah. Dr. Banks, you are absolutely correct. We are not, the applications are not being filed incorrectly. If anyone's been listening to City Councilor Tracy Whitfield, what happened was the ARPA office got so far behind, they just, they took care of the white business owners first. It just is let's just call it like it is. They took care of those first.
And who are those people working in that office? White folks.
Yeah.
Listen, they're going to take care of their own. Just like we need to take care of our own. I don't begrudge them.
Little Billy Baker's friends are going to be taken care of. Tommy Ash's friends are going to be taken care of. Tim Sheehan's friends are going to be taken care of. It just is what it is. And I think we have to call it like it is. You're right, Dr. Banks. We are not filling out those forms incorrectly. Listen, man, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to fill those out.
I would
Tragically,
love.
some of those white business owners, luckily
Probably
they
didn't even
had
fill them out.
they had folks in planning and economic development completing their applications for them. I mean, when the people making decisions, I feel like
they filled it out,
you,
and they made a call like, "Hey, I just submitted my thing." Or here's the other thing: they got called. Hey, man, get me your application. Oh yeah, and boom, here you go.
Right. So we have a problem, and
here's the problem.
Yeah.
Listen,
and the problem is twofold. The problem is City Hall, room 214. And all his subordinates. And then the problem is also in the communities because we don't want to hold people accountable. The crazy part is, Rob, they'll hold us accountable.
Oh, all day. Even for things we
folks in our community will hold us accountable to the hilt. They'll hold Tracy accountable, Justin accountable, Denise Jordan. They just hold us with whips. But when those folks do things, I don't want the mayor to be mad at me. First of all, he doesn't know you. He doesn't care to. Yeah. Who cares if he gets mad? You got to fight the power. All power lies in the hands of the people, period.
I'm calling that the Brett Favre syndrome. You steal, 5 million plus from the poorest state in the country and also the blackest state, and you're still able to walk around. Meanwhile, I can give innumerable examples, and everybody knows, even the mascots know, if that was a black person, it would be leading every sports news channel and every regular news channel, and that person would be behind bars. But
you know what, but it's also, again, the problem still comes back to us because I think we lead the charge when it comes to cancel culture. We'll cancel all black folks so quick it's ridiculous. Yeah. We'll cancel you like pow, but we'll still support Brett Favre.
Well, like I said before, we can't. Are we that dumb? Are we that dumb? I can't sit here and believe that we're that dumb.
Are we that passive?
Yeah, dumb.
Are we that apathetic? Until it impacts us directly. When it hits us, when it hits our mailbox and we get that letter, then we are livid. Until then, it's like you try and get people downtown to do things. Nah, that's not my thing. Okay, yeah. I don't do politics.
Well, and then they get hit, and then all of a sudden they're looking for you. Hey, I need.
For the people who say they don't do politics, don't you know that politics is economics? At the end of the day, It's about the movement of resources to ensure and enhance the quality of life. Period. It's that simple. It's that simple. I don't do politics. Okay. Sylvia says it can happen. I'm going to keep working. Hey, you have a good night, Sylvia. I wish you the best as well. Good luck with that. I hope you're successful. I need you to be successful. And you know what? The time is 10:17. I think we went past our time for insight.
A lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about.
And we're going to keep on pushing this and keep on bringing it to the forefront. And I think we probably need to read that thing for the next several.
Oh, that's going to be on the front page of the Metro Record.
For the next several.
I met a young lady the other day who was absolutely awesome and inspiring. Regine Jackson, if you're out there, I just want to shout you out and say we appreciate you, and I appreciated that conversation. Whew, it was refreshing. Yeah, we got some dope people in this city.
We do.
Got some dope
people. And we got people on the city that are on code, and that's all we need. Just changing this one position impacts this whole board, this whole chart. Impacts this whole chart.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to do it. Well, we got folks who are running, and I'm waiting for folks to go public with the fact that they're running so we can have that conversation about who we should be mobilizing around.
Yep. And they need to, if they're going to run, they need to put the word out like right now because the groundwork needs to happen yesterday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is 90.7 WTCC FM. And hold up, Asia Smith had sent me a flyer to make an announcement. Okay, let's download it. So apparently they're going to New York for an HBCU fair.
Oh, okay.
So if you have young people of college age, freshman, sophomore, junior center, they're going to, the Martin Luther King Jr. Family Services, home of the original and historic Black College Tour, presents the Malcolm Bernard HBCU College Fair bus trip Saturday, November 12th, 2022. There is a small cost. The cost includes bus trip to College Fair in New York, HBCU t-shirt, and dinner in Times Square. They should have dinner in Harlem. Application and payment must be submitted together to secure a student spot on the trip. Applications and payments can be hand-delivered to the Martin Luther King Jr. Family Services, 106 Wilbraham Road, or 3 Rutland Street, Springfield, Mass. Applications can be submitted via email to PBERNARD, P. Bernard, at mlkjrfs.org. Electronic applications must be submitted with a same-day electronic payment, such as Cash App or credit card. For Cash App payments, please include the student's name in the For section when submitting a payment. For credit card payments, call 413-746-3655. There's a mandatory pre-fair meeting and workshop Saturday, October 29th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Martin Luther King Jr. Family Services. So there are a number of things happening. Don't forget, MLK also sponsors the annual Black College Tour that takes place in April. But I found out yesterday that there is also another Black College Tour that's going to be happening. And I'm going to pull that up real quick.
The more the merrier.
Shout out to DJ Precise. He had posted on his page. I knew nothing about it. And I was like, all right, cool, let's get it. Wrong code. Let's get it. Where's his page? Okay, here we go. So there's going to be a second Black College Tour program. There's 2 different groups. The MLK program, MLK Center, has always historically ran the Black College Tour program, but I understand that there is another tour. I'm looking for the information. Tell my man posts a lot because it's way down there. The Youth Educational Services Incorporation presents the 2023 HBCU College Tour, April 16th through the 22nd. Informational session is October 15th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 727 State Street here in Springfield. They're accepting students, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. For more information on the Black College Tour program, sponsored by the Youth Educational Services, call 413-330-8132.
Can you repeat that number again? Because the 15th has passed.
It did pass.
Yeah. So
call 413-330-8132. Again, 413-330-8132 if you have a college-age student interested in going on and attending a Black College Tour during the month of April.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting?
What's that?
Black folks, we don't need to be in competition for each other. You read 2 flyers of 2 different historically black college tours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there should be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different college tours coming out of leaving out of Springfield. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be the only one.
Absolutely.
So I applaud both of them for doing what they're doing.
Right.
But we need to do a better job supporting each other. Absolutely. Instead of looking at it as, well, come to mine, don't go to theirs, or let's just feeling territorial.
Yeah, let's just keep it on the positive. Hopefully, everyone do the same thing we just did tonight. What else? Oh, Saturday, Poetry Undressed.
Oh,
come get your poetry on. 1365 is going to take place in the atrium down at the Marketplace Building, 1365 Main Street. Poetry Undressed, live band featuring Mulatto. We have some really dope poets, dope singers. There'll be food, there will be beverages. It's going to be insane. Make sure you come and check out the Artist Cafe. Great spot to hang out and meet great people. Like Indeed. My new home girl, Regine Jackson. I'm telling you, got to meet her. Cool people. Nice. There was some really dope people. Got a chance to meet a lot of nice people down here, as a matter of fact. So we are broadcasting right now out of the Artist Cafe. Dope spot. Yeah, and that's what's up. So anything else you want to add, Rob?
No, just listen, get on code. Don't fall into the distraction conversation with the mascots. Falling into this is what we don't do. Focus on what we need to do and align yourself with folks that get the message, get the hint, and on code. And listen, we need a regime change. And we need that regime change in Springfield. So instead of looking across the shores of the Atlantic and Pacific, let's look right here local and let's get this regime change going.
All right. That being said, much peace, much love, much respect. This is 90.7 WTCC FM, Monday Night Live with D.Moss. And listen, we're going to take about a 20-minute pause, come back with nonstop music till 6 in the morning. That being said, peace, y'all. We off of Facebook.